My parents were left standing at my wedding, while my husband's family took over. So I grabbed the mic key. I always imagined my wedding day would be the one day when both sides of my family stood together smiling, celebrating and welcoming a new chapter in my life. I never expected it to become the day I would have to choose whether to stay silent or finally speak the truth. My parents had sacrificed everything for me. They worked extra hours when money was tight, helped me through school and supported every dream I had. They weren't wealthy, influential, or connected. They were simply good parents who loved their daughter. My husband's family was completely different. They were wealthy, confident, and accustomed to getting what they wanted. From the moment our wedding planning began, they behaved as if the entire celebration belonged to them. At first, I tried to ignore it. His mother insisted on choosing the venue. His father demanded changes to the guest list. His sister replaced several decorations I had personally selected. Even the seating arrangement became an argument, because his family wanted their relatives placed at the best tables, while my parents were pushed toward the back. Every time I objected, my fiancé would squeeze my hand and whisper, "Please don't make this bigger than it needs to be." So I stayed quiet. I told myself marriage required compromise. I told myself that one difficult wedding day wasn't worth creating a family war. But I was wrong on the morning of my wedding. My mother called me. Her voice sounded unusually quiet. She told me that the wedding coordinator had informed her that my parents were no longer included in the receiving line. My father had also been asked not to make his planned welcome speech because my husband's father wanted more time during the reception. I was stunned who made that decision. I asked my mother, hesitated. His mother, I wanted to confront her immediately, but my wedding dress was already on, my makeup was finished, and guests were arriving. I told my mother I would handle it. Then I walked down the aisle. For a few minutes, everything looked beautiful. My father stood at the end of the aisle with tears in his eyes. My mother smiled through her own tears. I looked at them and remembered every birthday, every school performance, every late-night conversation. Then I looked at my future husband. I loved him, at least I believed I did. The ceremony ended and we moved into the reception. That's when everything changed. My husband's family took control of the microphone. His father delivered a long speech about their family name, their achievements, and their traditions. His mother spoke about how proud she was to welcome me into their family. His sister gave a speech that lasted nearly 20 minutes. My parents sat quietly at their table. Nobody invited them to speak. Nobody thanked them. Nobody even acknowledged them. Then I noticed something that broke my heart. My father had prepared a small handwritten speech. He had folded the paper carefully and placed it inside his jacket pocket. He never got the chance to read it. When the DJ announced the next part of the reception, my husband's father stood up again and said, "Before we continue, I think we should keep the evening focused on the family who organized this celebration." I looked at my parents. My mother lowered her eyes. My father's face went completely still. Something inside me snapped. I stood up. My husband looked at me and whispered, "What are you doing?" I didn't answer. I walked straight toward the stage. The DJ handed me the microphone. The room slowly became silent. I looked around at hundreds of guests. Then I said, "I'm sorry, but we're going to stop the music for a moment." My husband's mother immediately stood up. "Sweetheart, this isn't necessary." I looked at her actually. "It is," you could hear a pin drop. I turned toward my parents. My mother and father were left standing alone at their daughter's wedding today. People started looking at each other. I continued. They were pushed aside. Their seats were changed. Their speech was canceled. Their contribution was ignored. My husband's father stood. "That's enough." I raised the microphone. "No, it isn't." My voice shook, but I didn't stop. "This wedding may have beautiful flowers, expensive food, and a luxurious venue. But none of that matters if the people who raised me are treated like they don't belong here." My mother started crying. My father shook his head as if telling me not to cause trouble. But I wasn't trying to cause trouble. I was finally refusing to accept it. I turned toward my husband. "And I need to say something to you too." His expression changed. You kept telling me to stay quiet because you didn't want conflict. But every time you told me to stay quiet, you were asking me to watch my parents get disrespected, so everyone else could remain comfortable. He looked down. The room was completely silent. I took a breath. Marriage isn't supposed to mean abandoning the people who loved you before you met your spouse. And family isn't about who has the most money or the biggest house. Family is about who was there when you had nothing. Then I walked toward my father. I took the folded paper from his jacket pocket. Tonight my father is going to give his speech. My husband's father started to object, but this time nobody listened. My father slowly walked to the microphone. His hands were shaking. He unfolded the paper. Then he looked at me and said, "I didn't write this speech to compete with anyone." He paused. "I wrote it because my little girl is leaving home." The room became emotional. He talked about holding me when I was a baby, teaching me to ride a bicycle, helping me through heartbreak, and watching me become the woman standing before him. Then he looked at my husband. "I am not asking you to replace us. I'm asking you to love her enough that she never has to choose between being your wife and being our daughter." My husband lowered his head. When my father finished, the room erupted in applause. Even some members of my husband's family stood. My husband came toward me. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. I didn't respond immediately. He continued. "I thought keeping everyone happy meant avoiding conflict. I didn't realize that by staying silent, I was hurting you." His mother looked furious, but something had changed. For the first time that day, my husband wasn't standing beside his family. He was standing beside me. He took my hand. Then he turned toward his parents. "My wife is right. Her parents should never have been treated this way." His mother stared at him in disbelief, but he didn't back down. The rest of the evening was completely different. My parents were invited to the center of the celebration. My father danced with me. My mother hugged my husband. And even though the beginning of the night had been painful, the ending became something I'll never forget. Later that evening, my husband and I stood outside beneath the lights. He looked at me and said, "You shouldn't have had to grab that microphone." I smiled sadly. "No, I shouldn't have." He squeezed my hand. "But I'm glad you did years later." I still think about that moment. Not because I embarrassed anyone. Not because I won an argument. But because I learned something important. Silence doesn't always keep peace. Sometimes silence simply protects the person causing the problem. A wedding is supposed to celebrate two people becoming one family. It should never be an excuse for one family to erase the other. My parents didn't need expensive decorations. They didn't need a spotlight. They only needed to know that their daughter hadn't forgotten everything they had done for her. And when I grabbed that microphone, I wasn't trying to steal the spotlight. I was giving it back to the two people who had spent my entire life putting me first. That night taught me that boundaries aren't disrespectful. Standing up for the people you love isn't selfish. And sometimes the most important words you will ever say are the ones you were afraid to speak.